Hi, I'm Dan Barrio, training consultant here at Orion. In this webinar, we're going to be taking a look at our two new AI-powered tools, Report Assistant and Query Studio. Now, this portion of the webinar is pre-recorded. Towards the end, I'll be joined live by Louis Giannini, Senior Director of Product Management here at Orion, and we're going to be answering your questions in a live Q&A. That said, we're also going to be in the chat during this webinar. So if you have any questions as we go, please submit your questions in the chat. We also have a few experts from our reporting product team in the chat as well. So if you have questions as the webinar is going along, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll highlight some questions to answer in the live Q&A, as well as answer questions that come in at the end live. And if we're not able to get to your question during the webinar, we'll follow up with you after the webinar with answers. We also have some content and resources linked if you click on the Learn More at the top of your page. I highly recommend checking those out. And our most frequently asked question is, will you be able to watch this again? Yes. Via the same link that you used to sign up for this webinar, you'll be able to rewatch this as an on-demand recording. And we highly encourage sharing this with a colleague using the share feature if you find that you'd like to share it with a colleague and so they can watch it. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. We have a couple exciting events coming up. Myself, my counterpart, training consultant Consuelo, as well as all of our great Orion trainers are going to be at Align University along with our Redtail trainers. So if you'd like to learn Orion, Redtail, a bit of both, we're going to be in Minneapolis, June 9th and 10th. We highly encourage you checking out the sign up from the QR code or from that link. We'd love to see you there. And if you'd like to learn about Eclipse, our trading platform, join us in Omaha on May 12th for Eclipse University. Our amazing Eclipse trainer, Jake, is going to be hosting the training. You'll be able to get some really in-depth training on Eclipse and be able to ask questions directly and get answers from our Eclipse expert, Jake. A little disclaimer before we start, we're going to look at a couple different pieces of functionality. As I mentioned, Query Studio and the Report Assistant. If you don't currently have access to this functionality, we are going to mention what privileges need to be enabled for you or for your role during the webinar, but you'll need to reach out to the Manage Users admin at your firm to enable that for you as a user. So if you see something that you currently don't have access to, that's not a call to Orion. That would be reaching out to the Manage Users admin at your firm, and that's typically the person that would handle if you need to reset your password, for example. So what are you going to learn about in this webinar? Well, first we're going to start out with getting an understanding of what we mean by a query. What is a query? Generally, we have queries, which are for returning information internally about your database, and we have reports, which are client-facing reports. Then we'll look at Query Studio overall, how to build a query using natural language with the AI chat, and then go deeper into editing and sharing queries. Then we'll get a look at Report Assistant, how it can help you when you're building custom reports to change content on your custom reports, add and edit content. Then we'll come back for a live Q&A where we'll answer your questions that have come up during the webinar live and also any questions that come up live at the end. So let's start out by getting a better understanding of what we mean by a query. Well, like the name suggests, like the word suggests, it's a question. It's a question that you're asking about your database to get answers to a specific question or type of information. For example, you might be wondering how much cash is in my client accounts, or were there any accounts that went to zero during a particular period, or do I have any client households in my system that currently need their addresses updated? All of those are the types of information that you might be used to looking for and finding manually in the system. With a query, you can pull together answers to that question without having to manually find and organize that data. Queries in Orion can be exported to Excel, so you can do further analysis in Excel. When we're talking about reports, when we say a report, what we generally mean is a client-facing report. So that would be like a client statement or performance report that you would give to a client. Now, we're going to get an overview of Query Studio. We'll start with how to build a query, and then we'll get a look at what other functionality you have. But before we do that, uh, getting a better understanding of what Query Studio is it's not just a place to find queries, it's a place where you can build queries and edit and customize queries. So you can, for example, ask the AI chat a question. For in this case, we're showing show me active households in the system or clients that have active households that have canceled accounts. You can ask that as a question, and Query Studio will put together a query. It's a series of columns in a spreadsheet view that provides data to answer that questions. You can then go further and edit that information to rename columns, add columns. You can use filters to filter in or out data. So essentially, you start by asking a question. Query Studio turns that into a query, and then you can either run that query or share that query as is, or you can edit and adjust it to further meet your needs. Before we dive in and look at building queries, there are some privileges that you'll need to have enabled so that you can use Query Studio. Now, a very big caveat to start off with is to use Query Studio, you do need to be set up in your Orion database as what we call an advisor level user. That's the type of user that can see all clients in the database. If you are instead set up as a representative level user, which means you can only see your book of business or your clients, you won't be able to use Query Studio. You can work with an advisor level user at your firm and they can build and run a query with Query Studio. But again, you'll need to be an advisor level user to use Query Studio. The first time you launch it, you'll see a pop-up that is going to show a quick reference to the same privileges that I'm showing on this slide, but this slide is also a good reference for the two privileges that need to be enabled for either you individually as an advisor level user or for your broader role, which any other advisor level users are assigned in the system. So if you're part of an ops team, for example, at your firm, and you're all set up as advisor level users, by enabling these privileges, you'll have access to both Query Studio and the ability to build, use, edit, and share queries in it. So now let's look at creating a simple query in Query Studio. I'm going to go over to a demo database that we're going to be using for this training. I have my app dock here on my left, which is where I normally interact with the different apps in Orion. And Query Studio, I have saved here as an app in my favorites section. Now you can find all apps that you have access to by expanding this More section. And then if you wanted to add an app to the top, you can just hover over the star next to its name and it's going to add it to the top. Now, your list of apps will likely look different than mine because that's unique to you as a user and to which apps your managed user has given you access to. You'll notice that we also have another app called Query. This is now our legacy query app, which you can still utilize, and it is a place where you can go and find pre-built queries. But we're going to be working out of Query Studio primarily today. Now, let's create a simple query that returns which of my clients don't have addresses entered yet. And if you haven't run queries before or explored that process, you might be used to finding that information manually, and it might look something like this. You might come over to the Portfolio Audit app and click on Households, and here you can see your entire book of all of your clients in your database. And you'll notice that there isn't an address column shown by default, so you would have to come over to the right and explore your hidden columns and find your address columns. So there's a lot of manual work involved here. And then you still have to kind of visually see which ones don't have addresses entered. So a lot of manual work here. What we're going to do is we're going to build a query by launching Query Studio. This is going to show any queries that we've previously built. I've got a couple queries here, one that I have previously built and one that someone else has built and shared with me. I want to create a brand new query, so I'm going to come to the upper right and click on Create Query. So here, this is just a natural language chat interface where you can ask it what you want. Now, I recommend starting with the simplest version of your request. In this case, I'll ask it, show me all my clients with missing address info. That's all it needs to start. Now I'm going to come to the lower right and I'm going to click on this little send icon that looks like a paper airplane. You can also just click enter in this field. I don't recommend hitting save just yet because this will come in handy as we start making changes to the query. It'll save your progress, but for the time being, we want to start the generation process. So I'm going to click on the little paper airplane. That's going to say processing here in the upper left, which is Query Studio thinking about my request, thinking about what kind of information it needs. And all right, it's quickly done a couple things here. It has built my query, which I can see the results here. And on the right, it has given me a breakdown of what it thought about and what it did and what it provided in the query. So this is really helpful. It's giving me a window into how it thought about my request, what kind of information it shows. In this case, it's including all of my clients by name. It's including those address columns, and it added a filter to only show records that are missing information. So great, that already gives me a lot of really useful information. Here are all of my clients. There is their client ID. In our system, this is also known as their household ID. And I can see that, yes, indeed, they have missing address information. From here, I can save this query for further use by clicking on Save at the bottom in the bottom right, which I mentioned earlier. This is going to save this query and I'll be able to use it in the future. But I want to make this a little bit more useful. I want to see which reps are assigned to each household because maybe it's that rep's responsibility to reach out to the client and update the address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the Edit tab here in the upper right and click on that. And these are ways that I can edit the information in this query. So I want to add a column here. I'm going to click on the Columns tab. And here are the columns that are currently shown. Before I add anything, if I wanted to rename any columns here, I can expand the column and I can type in a new name for the column here. I could say client full name, for example, if I want to rename this column. And if you want to reorder the columns, you can click on this little handlebar on the left and move them up or down this stack as you prefer. So maybe I want to see them last name, first name, and full name. Now, I want to add the representative, so I want to add a column here. I'm going to come to the upper right and click on Add Column. And this is all of the different types of information that you can add here. There's a whole lot of information, and some of it might not be as relevant or useful for my use case. I could explore these individual folders and see what type of information is in there, but I recommend when you're looking for information, just click on the Add column and start searching. So let's say I'm going to type in rep, and I can see that it reduces the fields if I start typing in a little bit more representative. It's going to reduce my results, and here's the rep specific information. So let's say I want to see rep full name. So I'm going to add that at the very end. That way I can see who is the representative assigned to each of these clients. And I'm going to move this over right next to the client full name. I'm going to do that here and move that up. And let's actually move it one down there. All right, great. So you can see that it dynamically updates with my changes. This is where that save button comes in handy because I'm happy with these changes. So I want to go ahead and click on save. And this is going to save all of the changes that I've just made. If I want to keep editing, I can do that here. I could just type in the chat box at the bottom a new request, like I could type in add a column with the rep name. Or I can also, if I click on edit, in this general tab, I can rename the query itself. I can also give it a more descriptive description. These are all coming from the AI assistant. It's figured out what a good name and description would be here. But if I wanted to give it something a little bit more relevant to me, I can change these. And I'm going to come back to my list of queries by coming up here to the upper left, and I'm going to click on this queries link in the breadcrumb trail. this just takes me back to my list of queries. So here is the query that I just created. Now I'm going to expand these columns just so I can read them a little bit better. You can also click on the 3 horizontal lines there and then choose auto size all columns. That will expand these columns. But here's my query. So now in the future, if I ever want to run this query again, I can just come to Query Studio, can click on the lightning button, and it's going to give me this run query screen. There's nothing I need to choose here. This is just telling me what type of information it's going to include, what kind of filters are in there, and I can run this to screen first or directly to Excel. The nice thing about running to screen first is you'll be able to see the results, and if you wanted to make further customizations to the columns before you export to Excel, you can do that here. So you can say, for example, I want to group this, and I want to add a grouping by representative, by rep full name. So now I've created these nice folders and I can see the results there. Now let's explore what else you can do from the Query Studio interface. Now that we've created a query, let's look at how you can share that query and other things you can do from that interface. So back in the demo database here, I'm going to click on Query Studio. I can also see any queries that I've recently run in this list. Now keep in mind, if you log out of Orion and come back, it's going to refresh, it's going to clear out that list, but this is good for in this session, I can always come back to a query that I've previously run. And again, I'm looking at the query that I just created. It's been given a unique query ID. So if I need to tell somebody, hey, run query 1187, that's the unique ID for it. It's shown me the last person that either created or edited this query. Now I created it, so it shows me as the audited by. If someone else who has access to edit this query went in and make edits to it, it's going to update that to their name. Like I showed earlier, you can run the query by clicking on the lightning button. From the pencil icon, this will take you back into the edit mode. So from there, I can go in and I can make further changes. And let's actually update this query. Let's say I can see there's a test rep here, test sample. I don't want the results to include my test rep. So I'm going to edit it and I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to click on Edit in the upper right. And now I'm going to click on Filter. So I want to filter out that type of rep. You can see that the Query Studio has automatically created these filters for me so that it looks at all of the clients in the database and it only returns those that have these fields empty. I want to add a filter here. I'm going to click on Add Filter, and I'm going to choose one of these existing columns to filter by, which is going to be the rep full name column. So I'm going to select that column. I'm going to type in rep full name and click on that. Then I need to select an operator. What am I filtering by? I want if the rep name includes, or rather contains, the word test. Let's actually do does not contain. If the rep full name does not contain the word test, that's what I want it to return. I want it to return only reps whose full name does not contain test. So I've created this filter. You can see that it's already excluded that rep that has test in the name. So that's an example of how you can continue to customize a query after you've created it. It's important to hit save here once you're done customizing. And let's come back to our list of queries. Again, I'm going to click on Queries in the upper left. So now we're back in the list of queries. And here's that query, again, that I've created and I just edited. You can also copy an existing query by clicking on this icon. You can share the query with someone else by clicking on this lock icon that says Query Access. If I click on that, let's say my colleague Consuelo also needs to run this process. So I can click on User, I can find her by name, click on her name, and then I can determine what kind of access she has to the query here. Now, this is important because I can determine if she can just run the query by saying run equals yes. Anything that is not set is functionally equivalent to no, but I like to explicitly determine what they can do. So maybe I want to give Consuelo access to run it, but not edit or delete it. Or maybe I'm collaborating with her on it and I want to give her the ability to edit it, but not delete it. So you want to first specify what that person can do with it. And then you need to click on plus here, which is going to add them to this list of people. So you can see that I have access to do everything to this query. Consuelo can only run this query. And I can keep adding names if I want here. I can also select role here on the left. Now, you won't see some of these levels here because I, as an Orion employee, have the ability to change some of these higher level settings. You'll want to change them based on individual user or share it to multiple users that have the same role. So I'll go ahead and click on Save. I have updated this, so now when Consuelo logs into her Orion and opens Query Studio, she will see this query and she'll be able to run it. And of course, as you would expect, the trash can means you can delete this query. You can also customize this view itself. If you come up here to the upper right, if you click on Columns, you can turn on or off individual columns. So for example, if I don't really care to see what date it was audited, I can turn off that column. And if you make any changes to these columns, I recommend saving this as a view by clicking here in the upper left and then creating a new view, because that's going to save your customizations so that you don't have to redo them the next time you're in here. So if you click on Create New View, it'll ask you to save this. Dan's main view, and I'll click on the check mark, and I've now saved that. And I can have multiple views. If I want to go back to that standard view, I can change it there. If I want to go to my main view, I can change it. You do want to click on Refresh Data once you've changed the view. And the other thing you can do from here is you can search for existing queries. So let's say I have a really long list of custom queries here. I can search within that list, but I can also search from many of our thousands of already pre-created queries by clicking on Search All Queries in the upper right. So let's say, for example, I don't necessarily want to create a custom query. I want to see if one exists that shows maybe accounts that have gone to 0. So I can type in 0 in the search field and click Search. This is going to use the AI-powered search to think about what queries would have that type of information. In this case, it's going to look for queries with 0 in the name or in the description. And here I can see, here's a good query, accounts gone to 0. Now this is pulling queries from our legacy query app. These are pre-built queries. At this time, you cannot customize them. You can only run them, but this prevents you from having to go over to the legacy app, finding them in there and running them there. You can run them directly from here. So if I wanted to run this query, I can click on the lightning button. If the query has any parameters when it runs, I can set those parameters and I can click on Run Query. Now, if you've been using our legacy query app, you might see another group of queries here that says Legacy Query. And I'm going to expand the names here to make these a little more visible. So you might be wondering, well, where are these coming from? These are actually any queries that you have saved as favorites in the legacy query app. So I'll demonstrate that. I've got 4 queries here. Again, they're under this group that says legacy query. If I come over to the query app, which is the legacy query app, when you launch that app, it always launches to your favorites list. I can see that here on my right. So here are the same queries. I have saved them as favorites. So if you did want to save queries as favorites and have them show up in the Query Studio app under that legacy list, what you can do is you can come into the Query app, come to the right sidebar and click on All Queries. This is where you can see all queries that you have access to. I'm going to click on this column title just to organize them by number. And from here, if I wanted to add one to my favorites list, I could right-click on the query and add it to my favorites. This will add it to my favorites, both here in the legacy query app and also when I go into Query Studio. Now I've got that new query that I have just saved as a favorite, also showing up here. So this is a way that you can quickly surface queries that you're used to already running in the legacy query app. You can still run them from here, from Query Studio. Let's now turn our attention to and learn about Report Assistant. Report Assistant is an AI-powered tool that lives within the report builder that helps you with adding content to your reports. You can use it either by chatting to it using natural language, or you can use guided quick actions that show you specific options that you can choose from. Like with Query Studio, there is a specific Manage Users privilege that needs to be enabled. This does need to be enabled, again, by the person at your firm that manages the Manage Users app. That's the person that sets privileges for everyone at the firm. The specific privilege is highlighted in this slide. And once that is enabled, you'll find it in the report builder. When you're editing a report in the right sidebar, it's going to be the first and most prominent tab in the right sidebar. So let's go back to our demo database. I have the reporting app saved as a favorite here on the left. So you do need to have access to the reporting app first and foremost. And once I click on that on the reporting app, it takes me to the reports section, which is the home page of the reporting app. This is where I can choose a report to edit if it's an existing report that I want to make changes to, or I can create a brand new report. Now let's work with Report Assistant to make changes to a brand new report. When you create a brand new report, you essentially have two paths. You can start from a brand new blank report by clicking on Create Report in the upper right, or you can start from a pre-built template, which you can see here in this top section that says Templates. These are great starter reports that already have a lot of content on them. And I always recommend starting from a template, trying to find a template that's as close to what you want to build as possible and making changes to it. It's going to be a lot faster than clicking on Create Report and then deciding, well, what kind of content do I want to add? It really reduces that option paralysis when you're essentially staring at a blank canvas. The report templates themselves do require their own privilege and manage users. So if you launch the reporting app and you don't see a templates section here, you will need to have that enabled by your manage users admin. This is like a quick access section, which shows you any recent templates that you've opened. I like to come here to the all templates in the upper right and click on that. And then here you've got two tabs. This My Templates tab will show you any templates that you've created or customized. I don't have any in this database. I'm going to go to the Standard Templates tab, which is where I recommend you start out because this will show you all of the Orion created templates that you can start from. And these are generally organized by the type of report. For example, if you're looking for a report that has primarily performance-focused data on it, and maybe benchmarks, there's a category called Performance and Benchmark that has those types of reports. There's a variety of examples of quarterly statements, for example. Let's come up to the top here, and I am going to create a brand new report from this template called Monthly Report. Now, when you click on a report template, it'll give you a little preview here on the right of the content that's in that report. It's basically just listing out the sub-reports that are in that template. It gives you a good idea of what type of content is in there. And if you click on View Template at the bottom, it'll open the template, but really just for viewing. And we already want to start making changes to it. So I recommend instead of clicking on View Template, come to the bottom right of the given template that you want to open, click on the three dots, and then click on Create Report from Template. That's going to create a brand new report. It's essentially duplicating that template and turning it into a new custom report that you have complete control over. This is now your custom report that you can start changing and doing what you'd like with. As a best practice, as soon as you create a new custom report, you'll want to save the report. And while you're doing that, you might as well update the name of the report. This one, for example, says copy of monthly report. That's probably not what I want my clients to see. So I'm going to come to this right sidebar. You can already see the report assistant is here, but I want to come to this tab that looks like a page. It's the second tab here. I'm going to click on that, and that is where I can update the report name. So I'm going to call this Your Monthly Report, the type of name that I would like the clients to see when I run the report for them. And then I want to save this by coming up to Actions and clicking on Save. Now, before I do anything else, I find that for some of these templates, if they have a lot of content side by side, like on this first page, and we'll just let it reload here. Whenever the report builder is thinking and updating, it'll communicate what it's doing in the upper left, and it's now finished doing that. So one of the changes I like to make right away to some of these templates that have a lot of content here is I like to change them from portrait mode to landscape to give yourself a little bit more real estate and to make the elements breathe a little bit more. So let's also make that change manually first, and then we'll start using the AI assistant. So when I want to make changes to the report manually, I'm going to go to this tab here at the very top with the page. These are general settings that affect the entire report. And I'm going to come down to the layout section here on the right and expand that. And let's choose landscape. That's already going to make it wider and give it a little bit more breathing room. So great. I like those changes. Now let's start using the AI assistant. So I'm going to click on the first tab with the little stars here. That is the AI assistant tab. And here you have some options. These are the quick actions that I was talking about. This is like a guided way to use the report assistant where, for example, if I wanted to find a sub-report, an individual piece of content that I want to add to it, I can already click through here and start doing that. But if I know that I want to make a specific change, I can start chatting to it here at the bottom. The key thing to understand is whenever you wanted to make a change, you have to first point to the thing on the report that you want to change. And what I mean by that is, let's take a look at the charts here. So I've got a line chart for this performance and benchmark section. Notice as I move my mouse around, there's various things that highlight. You'll find that a lot on reports. There's essentially boxes within boxes. So you want to find the box that contains the actual thing that you want to change. In this case, what I want to do is I want to change this line chart to a bar chart, and I want to have the AI assistant do that for me. So first, I'll need to click on the line chart, and you'll see what happens is it gives it this dashed orange line highlighting the element itself. And at the very bottom of the AI assistant, it says selected line chart in context. This is very important. This confirms that I have selected the thing on the report that I want the AI assistant to make changes to. So that has to happen first. You have to select the thing that you want to change, and then you can talk to the AI assistant. So in this case, I want to change this line chart. Let's say, let's change this to a bar chart. I'll just say change this to a bar chart. Since it already has that line chart in context, it knows this refers to the line chart. I'll hit enter on my keyboard, or I'm on a Mac, so it's actually the return button. I'll click that, and it's now changed that to a bar chart. Now you might notice if you click on graphics like this line chart, I'm going to left click on the line chart to the left of it. Notice that the graphic seems to automatically update. I'll click on the bar chart to also demonstrate that. That's not actually making any kind of change. That's just the report engine itself giving you an approximation of what that graphic might look like. You won't really know what it looks like until you actually run it for a client. Now that it's added the bar chart, you can see in the chat conversation here, it's told me that it's changed that line chart to a bar chart. And it's given me a couple additional paths that I can take. I can update the configuration from here. I can change the type of data that is feeding into it or things about the data, or I can update the appearance. So if I click on one of those, I clicked on appearance, I can change the legend, I can change any of these appearance items. So starting out with a request in natural language, when you have something selected on the report, that's a great way to start to make a change. And then using these additional quick actions to help guide you through your additional changes is a great way to work to make those changes. Now, as a best practice, I recommend not making too many changes without saving your changes. So I'll go to actions at the very top. And I want to see what that looks like on an actual generated report. So I'll click save and run. It's going to ask me to sync the options for this report, and that's totally fine. I do want to do that. That's a pretty typical thing when you first save a new report that you've created. And now I can tell it what client to run for. I'm going to choose Loki McOdinson, one of our clients here in our demo database. And then I can manually enter the dates. I can either click within the start and end date and set those manually, or I prefer to use these quick dates for testing. I'll just quickly choose last quarter, and then I'll click on Run Now. That's going to run the report with the changes that I just made, so I can see what that actually looks like with a real client. Now, when you run the report, it's going to ask you to open a new browser tab, which I'll click Open to say yes to. And I can see that the line chart has been changed to a bar chart. Great. So let's come back to the browser tab where my report builder is. It brings me back to this report run screen, which I'll dismiss by clicking on the X in the upper right. So what else can you do with the report builder assistant? Well, you've seen me select something on the report that I want to make a change to. That puts that item in context. And I'm confirming that because it says here at the bottom that the selected bar chart is in context. Then I can ask it to make changes. Or if I'm not sure what else I can do with that, once you have something in context, you can then click on this button that says Content Prompt, and this will guide you to the types of actions that you can take with the thing that you have selected. And it takes me back to, do I want to make changes to the configuration or to the appearance? Let's look at another type of change that we can make. I'm going to scroll down and look for this table. So I have a simple table here that is basically, it's called an advanced table, but it's relatively simple. There's not a lot of columns here. It's basically breaking out all of the accounts in the household, showing me the beginning market value for each account, the net of contributions and distributions in this net additions column. Then it's giving me the ending market value at the very end, and it's calculating the difference between the beginning and the ending minus the net additions as the net gain. So pretty useful, but I'd like to add a column to this. I'd like to show my clients what the advisory fees paid were per account. So again, I can select the table, and again, notice that I'm hovering over this main box that it's in. This is not what I actually want to make the changes to. This is what's called the sub-report, or really the main box that everything lives in. The reason I don't want to select this, because I want to make changes within this one table, is when you select the main box or the sub-report that it's in, if there's multiple things in this box, if there's multiple bar charts, multiple tables, it's not sure what you want to make changes to. So I want to make sure that I'm hovering over the table. Notice it says advanced table. That confirms that I'm actually hovering over the table. I'll click on that, and that becomes what's in context. It says here in the bottom right, selected advanced table in context. So I know that that's what I've selected. And let me just ask it to add a column with advisory fees. Now, I could leave it at that and hit enter, and it'll add the column at the very end, and then I'll probably have to ask it again, well, can you move it back a couple columns? So instead of that, I'm going to ask it to do the thing that I want it to do, and I'm going to give it a little bit more context. I'm going to say, after the net additions column. So it's always helpful to give it any little piece of additional context that it needs to understand where that new column needs to live. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit return, and it is going to process my request. It's just thinking about what it needs to do in order to do that, and then it's going to implement it. And it's added a new column for advisory fees. Now, I've made that change. Again, I recommend as a best practice, once you make a change, either Actions Save Your Report or click on Actions Save and Run to run the report with your changes. Now, I've been communicating all of these changes in one long chat message here. If I want to start over and start with new changes or just a new conversation, I can click on this Clear Chat button at the bottom. That will clear out the chat. This takes me back to the beginning. And from here, I don't need to ask it something. I can just use these quick actions. For example, if I want to add a sub-report, and each of these things here, like this allocation overview, this is one sub-report. This activity summary is its own subreport. So subreports are self-contained components that you can add to a report. Let's say I want to add a subreport. I could click on this quick action that says Find Subreport. And this is going to guide me through my options for subreports that I can add. There are two categories of subreports. There are custom subreports that either you or someone else at your firm has created. That could be either during your firm's onboarding. Maybe we at Orion have helped someone at your firm create your own custom subreports. Or during your time at your firm, other people might have created custom subreports. Those are highly custom to your firm. And then we have standard subreports, which are the default starter subreports that every firm has access to, that Orion builds and that you have access to. So this is a good place to look for a variety of content that you can add. I'm going to click on that, and then it's going to continue to guide me and ask me, well, what type of information do you want to add to this report? Do you want to add tax information? Do you want to add planning or performance-based information? I want to add an Orion planning subreport. So I'm going to click on planning, and it's going to guide me further to what options I have, what subreports I can add. It's going to think here for a moment, and then it's going to present me with options that I can choose from. It's going to give me the five top options, and then if there are more beyond that, I can click on See More, and I can see what other additional ones I can add. But I already know that I want to add this Orion Planning Net Worth table. Now, it is going to add it after whatever I have selected in context. So let's say, for example, I want to add it after this allocation over time graph. So I'm going to click on this so that this is the thing that is selected in context. And then I'm going to choose the Orion Planning Net Worth table, and it's going to add it just below that. So remember to always select the context, which is either the thing that you want to change, or you're telling the system, all right, after this thing that I've selected is where I want you to add and drop in the new subreport. Beyond that, you can also use a couple other features here. If you click on the plus button at the bottom of this, you can use that to explore other types of content that you can add to the report, like a text box or a media, like if you want to add a PDF inside of a report. And then this I button, if you click on that, this takes you to some categories of items where you can learn more about the report assistant. You can learn about how the report builder assistant works from here. You can also learn about building a report and building subreport. Our support articles and content are linked from here. So if I click on that, it will tell me a little bit more about that. We also have some great articles linked at the end of the presentation that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes that are some great next steps to learning the report builder. And if you are learning the report builder and you want to learn more about something that you're looking at on a report, like let's say I want to learn, let's come back up here, and I want to learn more about this performance and benchmark bar graph. So I'm going to click on it, which will place it in context. And then I can just say, tell me about this bar chart. And this is going to tell me about how this bar chart works and what types of things I can do with it. And this is really, really helpful. Again, if you're learning the report builder, if you want to work more in depth with it, this will give you a better understanding of how this particular component is working. And then if you want to make manual changes, you can come up to this gear icon here at the top right. And these are the specific changes that you can make directly to this element without using the AI assistant. So this is prior to the existence of the AI assistant. This is the only way that you can make changes to something in a custom report. Now you have both options. You can work with the AI assistant or dive in deeper and make those changes yourself. And really the best practice is to start exploring the AI assistant. But then if you want to make finer, granular changes, spending a little bit of time learning the basics of the report builder and then combining that with the AI assistant is going to give you the best of both worlds.